Cool. So yeah, we are live, and as you can see, very busy man here. Got some errands to run, people to take care of. As always, CJ, appreciate you joining us, man. How's your holiday?
It was awesome, man. Spent time with some family. Spent a lot of time with my son.
There you go.
What more can you ask for out of a holiday? How was yours?
It was good. It was good. I don't have any kids, and my niece is older, so it's kind of weird seeing like just the dichotomy of it's like the stuff that she wants, and she just opens it now as a teenager. It's like, oh, cool, thanks. You know what I mean? It's like whereas the kid, seeing them open
Yeah,
everything, it's awesome. It's the only thing I kind of like miss about that. But yeah, I mean, it was great, man. Hard to believe it's December's almost over, but we obviously had Bombshell drop a couple days or a day before. With the Mike Preston piece, so we'll kind of go right into that here. Um, so obviously the back and forth on X, and you see kind of like a lot of the way people are talking about the article, and kind of their reaction to how they feel about me and things like that. I just to kind of address the situation, I want to obviously get your thoughts on it too. I think people are really missing the point. They focus on the line of he plays video games at night, and that's all they focus on, and that wasn't the point. And none of this, hey, Zay Flowers dropped the pass because Lamar plays video games. That's not the point whatsoever. You know what I mean? Like you and I, as you mentioned on the previous podcast, we're employees, right? We're not business owners, but you know, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for a business owner, which is what Steve Bisciotti is. Everybody works for him, who is going to be paying you the highest paid in the league at like not just at your position, but in the league. The expectations will be that you show up for meetings, that you're not late, that you kind of show up to voluntary team activities when you haven't gotten to the ultimate goal of winning the Super Bowl, right? Like that's just case in point. Like he's a business owner, so that stuff's going to start to get questioned as you're paying people almost 2 times their salary. That's what people are missing. No one's saying he's a bad guy. No one's questioning his character. No one's questioning really his play on the field with that article. But your goal is to win the Super Bowl. That was Lamar's goal from day one. That's your goal as an organization. Partially because of him in the playoffs, partially because other people, you've come up short of your goal. And that's 1,000% accurate. So now you're paying a person up here expecting to hit your goal, and they're not doing the extra little things on there to kind of help us. You know what I mean? So it just kind of, and again, there's other people for why the Ravens haven't gone. Obviously, Harbaugh, if you make a change there, it's probably warranted. But that's just kind of my thoughts on it. It's like people are missing the point that he's about to become the highest paid player in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken. And you're the starting quarterback on the team and one of the best players in the league. The expectations are that if you have a meeting at 9 a.m., you're not like, hey, I was up playing Fortnite till 4 a.m. Can you postpone it? You're showing up for that meeting. Right now, is that going to help you complete a pass? I don't know. But when you haven't been to a Super Bowl, you got to kind of do whatever else that you want. I guess just kind of thoughts on that.
So my thoughts on the article. Mike Preston's a journalist. I mean, he has to create some form of, even if you don't want to use the word chaos, um, he has to make the mind wander, right? And even though a lot of people do not like the article, bad publicity is still publicity at the end of the day. It doesn't matter. He got the clicks that was needed. There are eyes on it. National media picked it up now. So he got the ball rolling on some things. And yeah, I mean, we know how this fan base is. They are very protective of Lamar for a bunch of different reasons. I think a lot of that goes back to draft night. I think a lot of that goes back to early in his career where, he came into the league and even played well early on, but there were still questions. So people took that on. And, I don't have a problem with people rooting for their hometown quarterback, wanting him to be great and, kind of being that shield for him. But at the same time, there are some things that come with being the franchise guy. You're going to be questioned a little bit harder. The the spotlight is brighter on you. Even if if all 53 players were on Call of Duty all together in this big lobby, it does. No one's going to mention the other 52 guys because you're the quarterback, and it's just the nature of the position. It's not a Lamar thing, in my opinion. I think it's a quarterback thing. And I think on any team, the quarterback either gets way too much credit or way too much blame. That's just how it goes. So um, I don't have like a axe to grind with Mike Preston about what he wrote. I mean, he's a journalist. Anybody that's been a Ravens fan for a long time knows the players aren't exactly in love with him as a reporter. Him and Ed Reed had words years ago. Mike Preston is who Mike Preston is. He hasn't changed. He hasn't added extra fuel to any fire. He's been the same guy, at least to my recollection. So yeah, I don't have any big feelings about what was written because he's a journalist. I expect him to do that. And
Yeah.
I also understand that when you are the franchise quarterback of one of the most watched teams in the league, you're going to have more criticism on you.
Right.
It's tough to deal with. I understand that because you have guys sometimes like if you're playing primetime games, a kid from Wisconsin who might watch you play one game a year, if you have a bad game, he says you suck. And it's like, dude, it's like I'm the MVP front runner. What the fuck do you mean I suck?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to cuss, but I mean,
It's all good.
yeah, I'm just like you have to know that comes with it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I have no real big axe to grind with it. It's expected to me. When you're the guy, that's just what comes with it, and that's just what it is.
Yeah. And I think people fail to realize that this is a business. And while Lamar is I don't want to say he's an employee because then people might be implying that I'm saying something that I'm not, but he's an employee. He works for Steve Bisciotti. Steve Bisciotti works for the NFL. Harbaugh works for Bisciotti. Harbaugh manages the employees. So when your manager says, hey, you got to be here at this time and you're making this amount of money, walk into your work right now. And like, if you're a top performer, be like, I'm just not going to show up. You know what I mean? And again, a lot of this would be avoided if the Ravens had won a Super Bowl. If Lamar won a Super Bowl, he could sleep in the parking lot and they would, you know what I mean? He could be playing Call of Duty till 6 a.m. and it's not going to matter, right? But now when you're like, hey, we're paying you exponentially amount of more money, we haven't reached our ultimate goal. It's going to be a struggle for us to get there because we're paying you a lot more money now. We've already seen you perform at the highest level and we still haven't gotten there. Like that's kind of what I don't know how people fail to understand that, And I mean to your point with Mike Preston, I mean, I've always been a proponent of, maybe you just keep it a secret, but where there's smoke, there's fire generally, right? And it's like a lot of people come out and they say, well, how come no one's talking about Jalen Hurts or Mahomes or Jared Goff? It's like, well, if they were missing meetings and their team wasn't winning or whatever, I'm sure there would be some smoke to fire with that, right? Like you and I watch the games all the day. We think we have some inside knowledge, but we're not at the practices. We're not around them. We don't have sources. So it's like, regardless of what you think of Mike, like he didn't wake up just one day and be like, let me just defame Lamar Jackson by making shit up, right? Like, should it have come out? Like, would it have really mattered? Like, he probably did do it for clicks, but at the same time, there's probably some merit to it, and that's just all I ask from people.
Yeah.
It's like, just stop with the, oh, well, like I saw one, of course, today. It's like, oh, well, I can't wait for Mike Preston and Nick Wright to blame Lamar for the defense getting torched by Malik Willis. I'm like, but he never did to start. Like he never said that once. You know what I mean? It's like Lamar playing video games doesn't mean that Nate Wiggins can't stop anybody. It means that you need to go the extra mile if we're compensating you as that if we've come short of our goal. And that's a perfectly logical thing in my opinion. Kind of I'll leave it at that because obviously the vitriol that I get for some of the stuff on on X, but to your point, people are emotional and I get it, and we're still both Lamar guys. I mean, I don't want people to think I dislike the guy at all. I mean, he's a damn good player and I would love for him to raise the Lombardi trophy before he leaves Baltimore, but it's a business and they haven't, and whatever you need to do to get there should kind of be the ultimate goal for everybody. So you're muted still.
Yeah, no, I was letting you finish. I just said absolutely. I agree with you.
Yeah. So, I mean, but anyway, just I guess to touch base on things. So, I mean, it is ironic because when you and I talked for the Bears game, and then we had some technical difficulty when we tried to do it last week. So I'm glad you were able to kind of hop back on. We had hinted at possibly exploring a trade, and I remember our boy Snacks, who I'm actually meeting up with later tonight. He's coming down to Richmond City, but he texted me. He's like, "Hey, good stuff, but they're absolutely not trading Lamar Jackson." LOL. And then here it comes weeks later that they're kind of exploring it. Now, obviously, we had kind of talked about that, but this team, and we're still in kind of that situation. I kind of get your thoughts on it. So we had talked about Andrews not coming back. They extended him. You still have the free agent questions and the likelies. What do you do with Linderbaum? Zay's cap number is going to be $28 million. Same thing as George Pickens. If they franchised him, it's like, well, which one would you rather have? So again, if you keep Lamar, which they more than likely probably will, and his cap number is this, where it was down here before, it's tough to kind of get new pieces in place, especially on the offensive line, that will help your team get exponentially better. So I guess how likely do you think a trade is being explored? What do you think it would take to get him, given his contract status and the fact that there's 2 years? Do you think it might be less now than it would have been at the beginning of the season or anything like that? And I guess, what would you like to see the Ravens do? Let's say if they trade Lamar, what's your ideal scenario to augment the roster besides that? Or if they keep him, what do you suggest as a way to kind of like augment things?
So the only logical way to doing anything is an extension, right? If you can't extend them, next season's a wash. I mean, what are you going to do with a $75 million cap hit on the books? You're not going to be able to do anything. And yeah, they have a couple dollars right now in cap savings that'll roll over into next year's cap and a lot of free agents, but we're probably talking about that whole draft class next year. They might have to pick all of those guys because they just won't have the money to go and get the
1,000%.
replacements. Yeah, they're going to have to. So anything starts with an extension. If you can't get that done, you're probably toast. And the thing about it is, a part of this that I think I did not mention before is that I do not think Lamar is an idiot by any stretch of imagination. He knows, look, my cap hit is going to be this number. Obviously, if I make this amount of money on the books, we can't go get a team. So the only way it's logical, if I want to stay here, I have to renegotiate. And that's not the worst thing for him, an extension, because
Right.
it's not like you lose the 2 years that are still on this deal or the money. You just kick the can down the road. And in 2 more years, if they restructure you get the money anyway. So it's not like it's a loss. So I think that part is kind of getting lost in everything, and it just comes down to a matter of if he wants to be here or not. And he's tight-lipped. We all know this, and there's no agent out there to speak for him. So we don't have any indication that he doesn't want to be here, but there's no definite that he does. So I think that kind of puts people in like an uneasy type of feeling. But we went through this before. Everyone was almost for certain that, he didn't want to be here. He hates Baltimore, and he's just like, he gets his extension. He's just like, yeah, I love it here. I never wanted to leave. I was playing the game, which you have to do, especially when you're your own advocate. There's not a middleman that, can kind of, like Mike Preston on this hit piece. If he has an agent, you don't think an MRI comes out of thin air from some burner Twitter account? Because agents play the game for you, and you don't take any of the heat because all you have to say is, "Well, I didn't do that. Why would I, send my own MRI out?" It's just the small little games you have to play to, keep your name clean. But anything starts with an extension. If you can't get that done, then it's probably a struggle. But for all intents and purposes, if they can get the extension done, I think you have to try to find a pass rusher. Just by any means.
If sorry if I could just real fast, just to kind of get one thing. So if they can't get it done, how quickly do you kind of let that drag out? how aggressive are you in kind of trying to trade him? Do you take less? Because, like you said, it's all a wash, right? He's gonna, if he doesn't take the extension, he's still playing and you still owe him, and you're basically going to be in the same kind of boat that you're in now, where,
Yep.
hey, we might make the playoffs, we might not. So how quickly and aggressive do you think? Because and sorry to interrupt again, I would have thought that they would have already had those discussions, right? Like, so if he wanted to be here or wanted the extension, wouldn't you think it would have already been signed? Now, again, maybe he's like, hey, I don't want to do that in season. Who knows? But if they don't want to get it done, which I think is probably 50-50 right now, where if he doesn't want to stay, you know, then what? Like, how aggressive do you? And then we could kind of touch base on the if they keep him, where we go from there. But I guess just what happens if they don't extend it to you? How quickly does that need to get made? And is it, hey, the first team that calls us, it gives us a couple draft picks, we're good?
I think that you have to have that talk with him and set a deadline to say, look, we respect you. We want to do right by you, whether that means we extend here or you want to go elsewhere, because they have to work with him because of the no trade clause that's in the contract. So whatever trade has to get okayed by him first anyway. So that's still a work in progress between the two parties. So there needs to be a deadline set. I don't know if they're going to look for it to be draft night or draft week or pre-draft so they can have an idea of what they need. I think that conversation would definitely be had. I mean, neither side, I don't think is good at what they do. So I think DaCosta kind of knows, like, okay, well, if I don't have a quarterback, I would probably want to know that before the draft so I know how to approach it, because at that point, the bridge guys, in my opinion, like a Malik Willis, a young ascending player that presumably played well last night, in my opinion, on prime time, some people that are looking for a bridge guy or maybe just want a fresh start, they kind of want to give him a shot, he's probably gone by April. Someone's probably already gave him some money, like, hey, we want you to compete for, the starting job. He'll probably take that. I mean, he's been traded once before. If he's finally going to get an opportunity to start, he'll probably make that decision early in free agency because he'll have a market, in my opinion. So a guy like that probably isn't there. So there needs to be a clear-cut deadline of, look, Lamar, if this is something that can't work, that's fine, but we need to have this done by this day so that we know what we need to do going into the draft, and you can get where you want to go and kind of get your feet settled there too, and you can kind of tell them what you want in the draft because that'll be your team. Like, I think that's best for both parties.
And that deadline comes before any coaching move, because if
Yes.
Lamar says, I'm only staying if you get rid of Harbaugh, then you get rid of Harbaugh. If Lamar says, I'm gone, and then you already have a new coach in place, is that coach going to be like, oh, well, you didn't tell me that Lamar wasn't going to be here, right? Like,
Yeah.
it all comes back to him, whether, and we both kind of think Harbaugh should or is probably going to go. But again, it all ties back to Lamar. So yeah, the organization needs to be a little selfish and give him that deadline, like you said. So yeah, great stuff on that too. Now I guess kind of let's say they keep him, and you're making the $75 million cap hit, and what is going on. I mean, we all know the positions that we need, but how are you going to go out and get them outside of the draft and get quality for kind of the limitations that you have money wise?
I seriously don't think you can. I just don't. I just think that they're too weak in the trenches. I mean, currently next year you don't have a right guard on the roster because Falele's done. You don't have a center currently because Linderbaum's not under contract. You didn't pick up his fifth year option, so you got to get that done to some degree. And done on either side of, we're not keeping you or we're going to extend you. Left guard, he's under contract, but are you starting Andrew Voorhees another season? I mean, I don't.
Right.
Just honestly, I don't. So those are three positions on the interior offensive line. Your interior defensive line isn't any better. we don't know what's going on with Mads, but all due respect to him, he's probably done. Like,
yeah.
a cryptic neck injury with nothing, not a peep being said about it, he's done. Like,
Right.
let's call it what it is. And he should be. If it's that bad, go be a family man, bro. Don't kill yourself for this game. I'm sure you had injury guarantees in your contract. Take the guaranteed money. I don't, as a fan, I don't have any control over it, but I don't feel any way about him calling it quits. This is still a human at the end of the day.
Right.
So yeah, take your money and go home. Like, I'm not mad at that at all. I would do that if I were you. So he's done. So you have to replace $100 million of production right then and there. Brent Urban probably isn't back. And then other than that, you've got late round guys and undrafted guys behind them. So you need 3 guys in the interior defensive line and an edge rusher or 2, because I believe Mike Green might be your only outside linebacker under contract for next year.
Yep.
I don't think Draymond Jones is under contract. I know Van Noy isn't. Ojabo isn't. That's your unit right there. So you don't have any guys under contract there either. So to answer your question, I don't think you can. I think there are way too many needs that next year you're talking about they're going to have to pick all 12 guys with all 12 draft picks and just hope that they can hit on enough of them and they're ready to play, because that's the only way they're going to have 48 players on game day that can play and do anything worth a damn. I mean, that's really the only way.
Which then kind of ties into you could get a boatload of draft picks for Lamar if you get rid of him or if you trade him. So it's like the NFL, I was having this conversation with people. If you look at the Super Bowl winners, for the last 20 plus years, right, you either have a Hall of Fame legendary quarterback like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Patrick Mahomes. We would put Lamar and Allen in there, but they haven't gotten there, but they're going to be Hall of Famers. Or you have a quarterback on a rookie deal or just some side of the ball that is incredible. The one example that didn't have a quarterback on a rookie deal was the Rams, who had Matt Stafford, who they were paying, but they had a third-round wide receiver who had the second greatest wide receiver season of all time, and they had Aaron Donald, who lost defensive player of the year to TJ Watt that year, but he's Aaron freaking Donald, right? So it's like you have 2 of the best at either position, and then look at how good the Rams got because they had the defensive player of the year, and then they replaced that 2,000-yard receiver with Puka Nacua, another third-round receiver who was on pace to break that record before he got hurt. So when your quarterback is that good, and the Eagles are good across the ball, you're seeing it. You saw it with the Ravens for the reason why the Ravens were in purgatory and so bad after kind of Super Bowls. There were, I believe it was at least 2 years, like about the one that you're talking about that's going to be coming up, where it's like, who do we have? Like, who can we get? Like, you saw it firsthand if you've rooted for this team. And like, I don't know how people are missing that. They just think, oh, well, it'll get done. Yeah, George Pickens, he's a Raven. Max Crosby, he's a Raven. It's like, okay, well, if they're Ravens, then Lamar's not a Raven. Like, that's
100%.
So
the only way Max Crosby is a Raven next year is if there's some type of trade, including Lamar to Vegas and a pick swap for Crosby and a pick. That's the only way that happens.
Right.
Because the price is just too high. I mean, the guy, first of all, makes $38 million a year. So that's one. And then 2, he's probably a top 10 most effective player in the league. So that's not chump change. You're giving up at least 2 firsts and 2 players to get him here, first of all. And who are the 2 players you're giving up? Like, you don't really have that much talent in your front 7 on the defensive side of the ball. You just don't. So,
right.
It's a pipe dream.
So, and that's why, this year and kind of last year was so important. And I had been mentioning previously a lot of times, and the proof's on the pudding, that for those first 3 years of Lamar's extension, that was when you need to get in there. And I know people are saying they didn't go all in because they didn't address the offensive line, but they got freaking Derrick Henry. They got 2 first-round receivers that they drafted that are on their roster. You have a first-round safety. You have a tight end that had the second most all-time tight end yards. You've gotten pieces there. Like, pieces cost money. If a draft pick is a lottery ticket, you might draft them, they might suck. Some people are better than others. There's really not much else you can do. So it's either, and we're kind of laying it out for everybody. So I want to hear this. It's either Lamar comes back at the rate that he's at and doesn't get an extension and you suck for a couple of years, or he's gone and you might have a bridge year or two, but then you're kind of back to being in the playoffs and you're getting George Pickens, you're getting Max Crosby, you're getting all these other guys that you can get because you're not paying your quarterback. Or he does the extension, which takes a little bit off of it, but then you're extending him into him being into his 30s. And what are you going to get kind of towards the back end of that if his legs do start to go? So it's kind of a tough situation, and we're in such a crossroads. And, if they don't get in the playoffs this year, there's going to be a lot of not fun conversations having the castle. And your breakdown was great on kind of everything. So I hope people are kind of paying attention to that and realizing, like, the year was 2023. The year was last year. You came up short in the playoffs both of those years. And, like Dan Campbell said when the Lions lost in the AFC or the NFC Championship 2 years ago, they blew an 18-point lead. He's like, we don't know if we'll ever be back. And every year, everyone's like, we'll be back. We'll be back. The Ravens will be back. It just goes to show, you might not be. And
it's just not that simple. It's just not. Right. It's not that simple.
So, all right. So we'll go over, I guess, kind of obviously, the scenario is simple. Pittsburgh loses today. It's week 18 in Pittsburgh. Lamar may or may not be back. Pittsburgh wins today. They're out. So gut feeling telling you, not just obviously being a Ravens fan, but do you think it's going to come down to week 18 where we're meaning anything? And do you think that if it does come down to week 18 that Lamar plays that game, and then do you think the Ravens actually come up big in the big game as a team, not just him, but come up big and get over that hump? Or, you think we're not going to be seeing the Ravens in the playoffs?
If you would have asked me this before the game last night, I would have told you we're all idiots. It's not going to matter. The Steelers are going to win by 50. It doesn't matter. But then the game happened last night, and I had to really catch myself and say, do not get suckered back in by this team. Do not do it. Do not set yourself up. And it's a division game on the road without your best offensive playmaker.
Right.
That's not an easy game to win.
They're 1-5. Yeah, they're 1-5 in Cleveland since 2019, I believe, or 2016 or something.
And Cleveland's not an easy place to play, bro. It's really not. And I just look at the optics. It's not impossible for Cleveland to win the game, but I'm not going into it, Cleveland's going to win in the week 18s for the division. You want to know why we're here? Is because of things that we didn't do. So if we don't get it and Cleveland doesn't win, we can't be upset at Cleveland. They're a 3-win team. Like, you don't put your destiny in the hands of a 3-win team with the season on the line. You just don't do it. You controlled your destiny last week. You controlled your destiny the week before that, and the week before that, and the week before that. And you didn't do the things necessary. So if you don't get it, it's because you didn't deserve it, period. So,
yeah, and yep.
To me, it's house money. If you get the help from Cleveland, you need to be ready to go next week because you got an extra lifeline. If they don't get it, then hey, this is what you get. You were not prepared, and you got your lunch ate, and this is just what it comes down to. Get ready to pack your bags. You're going on vacation.
It'll be interesting, and I mean, again, people call me a hater. I think I'm a realist, right? Like, there's no confidence I would have, even if Cleveland blows out Pittsburgh today for some reason. Let's say Shador throws 4 touchdowns, Pittsburgh can't stop a nosebleed. They're still without DK next week. Would have the Ravens proven that they're going to go into Pittsburgh and win that game next week on the road? Whether Lamar plays or not. We've seen them come up small in the biggest games. Now, we could call last night a big game because if you lose your seasons, and they played awesome. Like, they looked great. But Pittsburgh has won 9 of the last 12 against us. They were coming in, limping in with a terrible, terrible offense in, 2 weeks ago, beat them at home. So it's like, what's going to change? And then you're going to have all week leading up to, is Lamar going to play? Do you play him if he's not 100%? If he's not 100%, you see how he's played, right? Like, do you really trust Tyler Huntley in there? So, yeah, it was tough to not get suckered in. I saw people print out playoff tickets, and they're like, Ravens-Bills round 1 is going to be on prime time. It's like, well, let's pump the brakes here. Let's get in first. Like, let's not just – but it shows what the team can look like when they're clicking on all cylinders. So I understand what people are saying. which then also kind of makes me understand where I don't understand the knowledge of people saying we don't have a supporting cast right around Lamar. It's like this team dominated a 9-win team. Now a lot of that was their running back, but the offensive line played great. The receivers didn't make any mistakes. There were no drops. There were none of that stuff. So when this team's clicking on all cylinders, we can do that. And I'm kind of with you. Like I've seen people saying, "Oh well, the NFL doesn't want isn't going to let the Steelers lose." It's like, please stop with that. Like, I don't want to see any posts about, it being rigged and that's why the Steelers won. Like you said, the Ravens didn't make enough plays. Nate Wiggins goes flying by Kenneth Gainwell, lets him just walk in for a touchdown. You make that stop there, you probably win that game, right? And then you're in first place in the division. You get one stop when Aaron Rodgers hasn't thrown for a pass for over 20 yards in a month and a half, and you don't let DK Metcalf eat your lunch, you're leading the division right now. You know what I mean? It's like you said, no one to blame but themselves, but it also then is an interesting situation because we haven't had that kind of first-round draft pick that's been that high in a while. So you missed the playoffs. You're drafted in 15, 16, somewhere in that, and it gives you leverage.
In that range, yeah.
Gives you the leverage to move up if you do want to get an absolute can't-miss stud that you think is whatever. It gives you leverage to possibly get another, trade up to get a quarterback if you do kind of move on from Lamar. So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's kind of like, well, if they make the playoffs, it's great story, 1-5, obviously, but it's going to lead to everybody running everything back. And then you're probably one and done in the playoffs if you're playing Buffalo. If you're playing Jacksonville or Houston, who knows, right? Like, who knows? But it's the same situation the Steelers have been in for the last 5-6 years. Just good enough to make the playoffs. Never really had a chance in there. Now the Ravens have had chances because they've been exponentially better, but came up short. So it's like, you don't suck, so you're not getting an elite draft pick, but you're not bad, but you're not good enough to get the Super Bowl. So yeah, it'll be a tough situation. I mean, the people that are rooting for Cleveland to put us out of or Pittsburgh to put us out of our misery so Harbaugh can get fired. I mean, listen to what CJ just said, right? Like, it might not matter next year if Lamar's back and doesn't restructure. It doesn't. I could be the head coach, and it's not going to matter. You could get prime Bill Belichick to come out and might win you another game or two, but it's not like, oh, you just bring in Clint Kubiak or Jesse Minter. Yeah. And our quarterback's making $75 million and we're going to the Super Bowl. It's like, it doesn't work like that. So yeah, I think this will be the last kind of hurrah that it's like, you got to be rooting for this team to get in because the alternative for the next 2 years could be very, very bad. So, you get in the dance. I know we say it every year. They always have a chance, right? They haven't come up, but if not now, when? It's the same thing for Josh Allen, right? If not now, when? So if the Ravens get in, everyone should be absolutely rooting for Cleveland today, not anything to put Pittsburgh out of, or we want Harbaugh fired. This could be your last stand to see Lamar Jackson as your quarterback in the playoffs with this cast, with this, whatever. And, come on Shador, right? Like, come on Dylan Sampson, come on Jerry Jeudy, come on, maybe Miles Garrett will break Aaron Rodgers. Is like, who knows? But so yeah, man. So I want to kind of go over, I guess, just kind of the NFL as a whole with you. Very, very interesting stuff. Kind of in an era that we haven't really seen before. I know I'm slightly older than you, but I mean, we've seen for years just decades of Brady dominating, Manning coming up short, but you got a couple years with him. Then it was Mahomes all in the AFC, and then you look at the Eagles kind of being a dynasty in the NFC, but you're about to have at least an AFC playoff that's going to have Bo Nix, Drake May, Trevor Lawrence, CJ Stroud, Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers or Lamar Jackson, and I'm missing one, but just like an insane AFC, and then the NFC kind of everyone thinks the Rams are the best team. They could be the 7th seed if San Francisco could win that division if they win their next 2 games, or the Bears are the 1 seed. So it's like, gun to your head, who you got coming out of the AFC, who you got coming out of the NFC. I kind of personally, I have a futures bet already on Houston to win the AFC, but I think if you're giving me the option, I think I like Jacksonville coming out of the AFC, just given the fact that, I did hear a stat the other day that since 2016, the Super Bowl winner has had a top 11 offense and a top 13 defense, and there's only 5 teams right now that fit that criteria. Buffalo, Jacksonville, New England, Chicago, and the Rams. So if you're going by that, it's either Jacksonville, Buffalo, or New England that's coming out. I don't think anyone really likes New England. So what are your thoughts on I guess start with the AFC.
Houston has a chance because that defense, bro. I mean, they don't have to do anything special. They line up and they say, "We're going to beat you up, and you're not going to do anything about it." They don't have
What's
to.
that like?
What do you say?
I said, what's that like? That must be nice. We used to have some guys like that.
Man, I miss it. I'll tell you that. They don't have to disguise what they're doing. They line up and they say, if we don't care that you know that we're in cover 3, cover 6, cover 2, they don't care. They
Right.
line up exactly what they're going to do and say that our 4 are going to beat your 5, and we're going to dare you to try to beat us. And they beat you more times than not. That's dominant.
Yep.
Dominant. So they absolutely have a chance. Um, Denver, Peyton has been there before. We know about the shortcomings in New Orleans, but he has a ring. He's been close other times, championship games and such. So he knows what it takes. I just don't know if I can say that in the heat of the moment, Bo Nix is going to go out and will you to a win. I think it has to be more so he doesn't lose you the game, and Peyton just kind of guides him through on how to manage it, which isn't a problem. I mean, he's a young player. Well, young in years accumulated. Obviously, we know he played a lot of football in college, but yeah, NFL wise, he's a younger player. You need a coach to kind of guide you through those situations. Um, but then you have the opposite in Jacksonville. You got a rookie head coach with, a average quarterback as far as age goes as Trevor Lawrence. Not young, not old, but they made a good acquisition with Jacoby Myers, which just seemed to really unlock that offense for whatever reason. Um, he just kind of has a do-it-all skill set. So they're live and they're jumping around right now. So the AFC is really thick right now because there's no runaway team. There's no
Right.
team that you're just saying, "Oh my gosh, no one's within 3 scores of them." You don't have that this year. In years past, the Chiefs have just been inevitable. Like it did not matter what, to me at least, what it didn't matter what they looked like regular season or anything like that. You kind of knew that you were gonna have to go through them and see them to have any shot. I mean, that's
Right.
just what it was.
Right.
Um,
Yeah,
so that
and sorry, just to touch on your point, Denver's going off as a favorite, but at plus 350. Normally at this point, you have the 1 seed, some sort of minus money or almost even money. So that kind of
yeah,
tells you everything you need to know right there. And it goes down to Houston at plus 550 is the fifth betting choice there. So, I mean, you're exactly right. It proves it. And to some of the point, again, sorry to interrupt, the stuff that you brought up, like our questions about Denver and our questions about Jacksonville and our questions about Houston, where they're best at is the areas that translate best in the playoffs. Like Denver gets to the quarterback and they don't allow you to sack their quarterback. That stuff
yep,
travels in the playoffs.
yep,
Jacksonville stops the run. They turn you over. They don't turn the ball over themselves. They have weapons. Houston, you already talked about. So it's like that stuff kind of travels, whereas like you have Buffalo, who has the best player by miles in there, but the rest of everybody around him is tough. So it's tough to believe in. There's other teams and not just believe in Buffalo, but to the points that you brought up, that stuff just doesn't go away. We've had a large enough sample size this season that showed that that stuff works.
yep,
So
absolutely.
so
So
yeah,
yeah,
so okay, so probably Houston, or I guess like kind of Houston, Jacksonville, Denver would be what would I guess the one that would probably surprise you, like you would be shocked, would be if it were any combination of Pittsburgh or Baltimore, or even probably the Chargers, right? It's one of those other five.
huge shocker. I just don't think the Chargers don't protect Herbert well enough to mix it up with any of those teams. I mean, they'll fight. They're coached by a Harbaugh brother, so they'll fight. They'll be in the game. They'll scrap. It's not an issue. That's not a question to me. I just don't think they have enough up front offensively to really bang with those guys and be able to move bodies long enough to win multiple games and go on a run.
Right.
Buffalo's an interesting case because they've been there. I just truly Houston is built to just expose that team. Like they have nothing for them.
Yep.
It They make Josh Allen look like Josh McCown. Period. And that's not disrespect to Josh, because it's not just him. I mean, they own Herbert, they own Allen, they make everybody uncomfortable. Guys legit struggle against that defense, and they should. It's a great unit. Um, so if that's Buffalo's matchup, I'm not uber confident in that, because they don't have to blitz them. And even if they did, Houston corners are good with Kamari Lassiter and Derek Stingley. What are we talking about? Like, Keon Coleman's going to turn into prime TO against those guys?
Right.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's not happening. So, the Twitter will probably tell you, oh, Josh is in there with no Lamar Mahomes. He's coasting to the Super Bowl. I'm not so sure about that. I'm
Right.
really not. I'm not so sure about that. Awesome player, great player, obviously the best quarterback in the field, but the issues that they've had all season kind of get exposed by three of those teams that are also in the field.
Right.
Now, they don't have a quarterback that's as explosive as he is, but they don't need that.
Right.
They don't. Like, their teams are bad matchups for Buffalo, legit. Like,
Right.
they just
And
are.
look what three of those teams have. It goes back to what we mentioned, right? The ones that you're most surprised on that would make it are Buffalo, who has an expensive quarterback, Pittsburgh, who has an expensive quarterback and not a good roster, Denver quarterback on their rookie deal, Houston quarterback on their rookie deal, Jacksonville, they are paying Trevor, but built in the trenches and otherwise, and hit on some good draft picks, and then you got rookie deal for Drake May. So I mean, the proof is right there. To go back to your previous points, that why is Houston so good on defense? Well, they're not paying their quarterback. They're just not. And it's like their window is going to start to be now until they start paying CJ Stroud, and then they start to having the discussion. Same thing with New England. Same thing with Bo Nix. So very, very interesting. I do think that the NFC is winning the Super Bowl. So if I saw on a stat for AFC versus NFC, it doesn't matter to me who comes out of there. I would bet the NFC, provided it's not like minus 200, but just I'll give you some NFC odds here. And I guess remember the criteria that I kind of said based on the last 16 or the Super Bowl winners since 2016. Only the Bears and Rams fit that criteria, but you have the Rams, who are currently at the 6th seed, coming off at plus 240 as betting favorite. Then Seattle, Philly, San Fran, the Bears coming in at plus 750. And we saw a dead Packers team, to me, coming in at plus 900. So I don't think that they have a shot. And then there's whoever wins the NFC South. But thoughts on, thoughts on that? I mean, is it, hey, until Philly doesn't go, then they're basically going to be like the Chiefs to you and expect to have to go through them and, the NFC Championship? Or is it, all those teams have kind of usurped them to you?
Philly's interesting because they can beat any of those teams, but they could also lose to any of those teams in embarrassing fashion. And that's what kind of scares me about backing them financially, because they have the opportunity to hang with anybody, but just the miscues and the stuff that's going on within, are they going to have the toughness to say, and remember, look, we've been here before. We've played in 2 championship games. We've been to 2 Super Bowls. We've won a Super Bowl last season. We know what it takes, but can we get out of our own way? That's still to be determined. NFC, look, Shanahan, he knows how to get there. He knows. McVay, tough. You know what you're going to get there. Very good team, very good roster. But the Chicago Bears, this is going to sound so crazy. At that value, you have to look at it and say, even if you're like a small fry type of bettor, throw $5 at it just to kind of see, because they just seem so brought in and they're just so scrappy. I mean, they just do not die. When you're watching that Packers game 2 weeks ago, it's 16 to what, 6 or 3, something like that.
A game that everybody expected them to lose because they're not for real. You know what I mean? So yeah.
I mean, at Lambeau, no. That was at Soldier. But regardless, They're down 2 scores late. They rally, and then they throw the dagger in overtime. But that's been them all year. At every turn where everyone's just like, oh, they're not serious, they're not even that good, they're opportunistic. Like they truly are. But I just think you have to take some value on them at plus 700. Um, Obviously, the consensus pick will probably be the Rams. I like them. I think that they're a good team, good roster. Stafford's playing like an MVP, probably will be the MVP, which is deserved. Um, but we've seen them have some bad losses. We've seen that. I'm not going to hold a division game against them, but they did lose to San Francisco without their quarterback, without
Fred Warner, without
Fred
anybody really.
Warner
Yeah.
was down. Kittle still wasn't back. I mean, San Francisco had their practice squad out there, and they still beat them.
Yeah.
It's a division game. I get it. So you don't want to hold too much stake against them, but you can't pick them as a runaway favorite with
Bryce
that
Young.
resume.
Bryce Young looked incredible against them, and they might have to go to Carolina. If they're the 5 seed, they're going to Carolina. If Carolina wins that division, it's like, how can you lay 10 with the Rams or whatever it's going to be? That was a 10.5 point line, and Carolina dropped 40 on them. So I'm with you, man. And I was shaking my head when you said the Bears, because 3 weeks ago I've been like, hell no. But it's like whenever you expect them to lose them, things are happening. And then you look at the numbers that I gave that I heard from people. It's like, so maybe the Bears aren't just lucky. They have a top 11 offense and a top 13 defense, and they're turning you over. And like you said, they believe they have a good coach. Like, they've already beaten Philly. They're playing San Francisco, so they're not going to be scared of them. You know what I mean? It's like, I became a Bears believer, and I never thought that would be the case. And it went from where I'd be absolutely shocked if the Bears made it to kind of Rams Bears is kind of my 1 and 2, and I give the little lean to Chicago there. And I can't imagine ever in my life seeing the Chicago Bears in the Super Bowl, but
No.
it's crazy to think. So cool, man. Well, any best bets for the week that you like, whether it's like total or just money line or spread, anything that you would have anybody put any shekels on?
I love the Bears as a dog tonight. I do.
+3.
I love them as a dog tonight. They've got some pep in their step. We clinched the division for them last night, so they're happy about that. But they still have a chance at the 1 seed. A team like that, I don't think that they're just going to be content with just winning the division and saying that they're in the playoffs.
I agree.
They've adapted a killer mentality, and what better way to put even more emphasis on your season than going into San Francisco and winning that game tonight? Keep yourself in the contention for the 1 seed, and then that's a statement win if you can pull that off. So if I'm looking at any esteem from anybody, it's them tonight, Sunday Night Football on the road as a dog, saying, we're here and we're for real. I'd look into that if I were you.
I already have them in my my pick 6 I have to do for the week. I took them at +3 to kind of start that. And one thing that I was thinking about, and I actually love Carolina at home +7.5. I've been pretty good with them with this year, like at home. It's like, this is what they do, right? And Seattle has San Francisco next week for the division. Not saying Carolina's going to win that game, because next week's really all that matters to them, but they've been scrappy at home. So Carolina over a touchdown. I was on Pittsburgh money line. I got off of it because I'm scared of Cleveland. But, if Pittsburgh blew them out, it wouldn't surprise me. I have Jacksonville's team total over because I think they're just going to roll the Colts. But, one thing I was thinking about, and this is just goes to show that it's going to happen, but we don't need more games. We don't need more football. Everyone says, oh, more football is better than nothing. Look at who started on Christmas Eve. Look at what the Week 18 matchups might be. If Carolina wins today and Tampa loses, they're out. If Pittsburgh wins today, Pittsburgh-Baltimore is meaningless, but you had to have another week of football. You know what I mean? It's kind of like it's never going to make a difference to the NFL, but if you just look at how watered down the product is, it's like, who was upset that they missed any of the games on Christmas? Probably nobody. Right? Yeah.
Nobody.
So I'm kind of rooting for a little disaster, just like kind of knock everyone out. So week 18 is meaningless. Obviously, outside of Pittsburgh, Baltimore, like I would love for Pittsburgh to lose that. But yeah, we don't need a 19th game. We don't need a 20th game. It's probably coming. We don't need games in Brazil. They're doing a college game in Brazil now, by the way. That's like the college opener, NC State, and I forget who it's like. It might be NC State, Georgia Tech or something. So it's like a conference game that's a non-conference game that they're. So now college is going to Brazil. It's like, stop it with that. But any good bets for like the college football playoff or anything, or any like big strong conviction that you have there?
I'm riding with Indiana, bro.
Okay.
I'm riding with Indiana. You're not going to get crazy value on them, but I think you have to ride with them. Georgia, they're just a wagon, bro. They're just a wagon. So I'd expect them to be there as well. But yeah, I think Indiana takes care of Alabama. I expect Georgia to take care of business as well. The other two games, I'm not super big on as far as who could win them. I think both teams have a real chance, but there is a lot of diversity in the styles of play. What is it? Texas Tech and Oregon?
Yeah.
Yep. Texas Tech, Oregon. You're just looking at two totally different play styles. Texas Tech has adopted, because the name of the game in the Big 12 has usually been, score a lot of points, but give up a lot of points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Texas Tech doesn't do that. That defense is very for real. They're stingy on defense, but they can still score like a Big 12 offense. And I think that challenges Oregon a little bit. I really do, because they've been able to get dragged into low-scoring affairs this year. Iowa comes to mind. They struggled early very much with Northwestern as well. So, they've had their woes as well. So, I think Texas Tech can get Oregon there. What's the other game? I'm just drawing a blank right now.
Yeah. Well, you have Miami, Ohio State, and then you have Indiana, and Georgia, Ole Miss. Yeah.
Yep. So the Miami game, they were lucky to get out of that game the other weekend with a win. That was an ugly game. But I just think their season's done. I just think it's over with. Not for lack of talent or anything like that. But Carson Beck, I'm just not a believer. I'm sorry. I'm just not. No big analysis for me there. I just don't believe in the guy. I just don't.
I was going to hitch my wagon to them to kind of go in and do the upset, but I kind of had the same thing. So I have Georgia right now with a profit boost that I got before the playoffs started, plus 700 to win the Natty. So wow. I'm kind of torn on Indiana. Yeah, I do think that, like, if you look at the Ohio State game, I've said this and I might be an idiot, Ohio State didn't really care about that game. Not that it's not hard, not that you don't want to care about the Big Ten championship, but can Indiana really get up off the mat 3 times in a row and face 3 of the best teams that they've had? That, you might get by Alabama, but then Oregon or Texas Tech are waiting for you. Then guess who's waiting for you after that? Either Georgia or Ohio State again. And I don't necessarily always resign to the fact that if you haven't been there before, you can't get it done, because why can't you? Mendoza, like, they're a good offense. They're not explosive. They're a decent enough defense. I think those other teams can present some challenges to them that it's hard to go 16-0, which is what they're going to have to be, and like, you have this big layoff, and maybe I'm an idiot. I will probably take Bama in the points also, kind of because I root for Bama, but I think there's going to be one surprising game this round that, outside of maybe Georgia, Ole Miss, I think that's a steamroll, but I'm not giving Miami. I'm not counting them out strictly because that defense is so good. And how many points do you think Ohio State's going to score? And maybe you luck your way into 17 if you're Miami. That might be enough. 17-14, 17-16. I don't know. But yeah. I don't think we've seen Ohio State kick it in the high gear. But I think this is a terrible matchup for them to kick it in the high gear because Miami's so good in kind of where they're at. So it'll be interesting, man. But, yeah, let's you get back to your Sunday. So hopefully, maybe we're having meaningful football for the Ravens fans. If not, it's going to be – the offseason could be starting Monday when people call into 105.7 The Fan, and God knows what the hell they're going to say. Technically the offseason starting then. But, yeah, man, enjoy your New Year. If I don't talk to you before then, obviously give him a follow at Selly Talks. You can follow me, but I'm sure you all hate me. And then I'm hanging out with our boy Snacks later. We're going out for the Bears game. He's coming down to Ocean City. So I saw you two Stallions hanging out at the game. So I'll be hanging out with him, and we'll give you a shout out for sure.
All right. You guys enjoy, bro. Happy New Year to you.
Take care. See ya.
All right, bro.